Welcome to Stocks to Watch, where we bring you in-depth conversations with the leaders shaping the future of the mining and exploration industry. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Sandeep Singh, CEO of Western Copper and Gold Corporation, a company at the forefront of resource development in Canada. They're listed on both the New York Stock Exchange and the TSX in Canada as WRN. Western Copper and Gold is dedicated to developing the Casino Project, a world-class copper gold mining endeavor situated in the majestic Dawson Range Mountains of Yukon, Canada. This promising project is not only a testament to advanced exploration and sustainable practices, but truly a beacon of economic potential in the mining sector. Sandeep, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ashley. It's good to be with you.
Yes, great to have this conversation today. The copper market demand is really rising due to the nature of copper and its importance for the green transition and upgrading of electricity grids, as you know. And moreover, the quality of ore deposits in the world is diminishing. So do you believe we're going to face a long-term supply deficit in the copper market? And how will that really impact the prices should it happen?
I mean, I think we absolutely will. I mean, you hit it on the head. I think there's a number of things that we as a society, as a planet, need to kind of do going forward, and they're all kind of relying on copper. Obviously, there's other metals we need for that energy transition, but copper is at the center, is at the heart of it. And whether it's EV penetration or increases electrification in general, you've got a continent in India that needs to modernize its electrical grid. Frankly, everywhere in the West, we need to do the same. And then on top of that, the latest thematic, if that wasn't enough, is the AI race, the artificial intelligence race. And it is a race, I would argue, between the West and the East. So all that requires copper, all that requires power. And as you point out, there just aren't enough new deposits coming online. What we've seen recently is larger companies in the copper space certainly being active in terms of M&A and putting puzzle pieces together, but that doesn't necessarily create any more copper, which is what the world really needs. And I see that crunch starting to take shape a little bit right now, and you see maybe people positioning for it. But really, I think if you fast forward a couple of years, that's when we really get into the heart of that supply-demand imbalance.
Absolutely. To dovetail on that, given the rising demand and also the current fragmentation in supply chains we're witnessing really on a global scale, as you mentioned, where do you think the world will get the majority of its copper supplies from moving forward?
Well, look, I think the copper is where it is. So that hasn't historically changed. A lot of it is in Latin America. Historically, a lot of copper's come out of Chile, obviously Peru, elsewhere. That's not going to change dramatically. But what I think you're seeing is that there are certain countries where it's just getting harder and harder for that metal to come out of the ground, whether it's because of the endowments themselves or the regulatory regimes, the social unrest that tends to kind of follow some of those jurisdictions. So, unfortunately, we need more and more of these deposits. We need more things coming online at the exact time where it's harder to bring them online. And frankly, we find ourselves, I think, as a sector, scratching certain countries off the list in terms of where you can operate. In particular, in copper, I mean, less so maybe in smaller gold mines or other metals. Copper projects tend to be big, and so the investments require a large. Justifying those investments in jurisdictions that don't seem stable, that's going to become a harder and harder endeavor if you're sitting in the boardroom at these big companies. And we've seen that, of late. We've seen, countries that we thought as a sector were places you could build and operate, and it turns out they're not. So I think from our perspective, being in Canada, we see that as a massive advantage. I think the premium for being in stable jurisdictions is only going to grow, but it does add complexity to that supply necessity that we're facing in the sector.
So I'd like to examine your asset, the Casino Project. It has the potential to position the company as a major copper supplier and attracted attention from major players as well, like Rio Tinto and Mitsubishi. Rio Tinto, in fact, even increased its stake in the project. So there really must be some compelling reasons that made these two big companies join in.
Sure, I can give you kind of the color on our project. And yes, it's a big copper and gold porphyry in the Yukon, as you mentioned in your intro. A very, very significant asset. People use world-class, I think, a little bit too loosely, but I prefer to say globally significant, and hence why two of the smartest folks in the copper space have been drawn to it. But what we are is, as I said, a large copper gold porphyry. So significant amounts of copper and gold will come out of the ground, hopefully early next decade. It's a very large deposit. It's long life. It's got a high grade core, which underpins a very quick payback. So we see scenarios where even using long-term prices for copper and gold, the payback could be roughly 3.5 years. And then there are decades of mine life beyond that. So that's really the combination, I would say, of very large, long life, very quick payback in a stable jurisdiction like the Yukon, in a world where these things are harder to kind of bring to market. That's really what the story is at the Casino project. And that's, I think, some confluence of that is what's attracted Rio Tinto. They're just under 10% shareholder in the company, and Mitsubishi Materials, another phenomenal partner, just under 5% of the equity. With Rio Tinto, they've put money in 5 separate times to maintain or grow their stake. As far as we know, Mitsubishi Materials, this is the only junior company equity investment that they hold. So, so two great partners, and I think it's it's always a scenario, or often a scenario, where the corporates or the mining companies figure things out first and make long-term, decisions in terms of getting exposure. Investors can be a little bit more short-term focused, but I do think we'll see investors come back to the development market and specifically to our company as well, as all this dynamic that we've been talking about actually kind of unfolds.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I would have to imagine these strategic partners are absolutely paramount to success, and to anticipating success. Maybe we could talk a little bit about some key milestones for this project in particular, that you anticipate.
Sure. Look, for us, we have a feasibility study on the project, so we're not looking for it. We have it. We know it's there. We've done a significant amount of work on it technically, and that's current. That was done in mid 2022. So now we're pushing in earnest through the permitting process, the assessment and permitting process. That is complicated, in Canada and everywhere in the world, but it's the biggest value re-rate possibility for us. We're trading at fractions of our underlying fundamental value. If we can move that up the curve through de-risking, that's really what's in our shareholders' best interest. And the project's best interest in terms of bringing it forward. So that's what we're going to focus on. We're funded to do it. We just raised funding in April with significant support from new institutional and retail shareholders. Obviously, we have the continuing support of Rio Tinto and Mitsubishi. So we're going to plow ahead and de-risk. And we think that de-risking, that advancement of permitting could frankly come together quite nicely with the backdrop that we're talking about. I think that tightness, really, we've had a good move in copper. Now it's cutting off in the last week or so. That's fine. I think overall, when I look forward to when we're advancing permitting over the next couple of years, that's really where the copper crunch is going to come. Frankly, I think gold's also going to have a good move. So if all that comes together as we hope, then that can be a really important moment for investors.
And you did talk about checking places off the list. Copper is where it is. I'd like to talk a little bit about the decoupling taking place between the West and China when it comes to critical mineral supply. Do you see this as an opportunity really for your company, and how are you leveraging that?
I think it absolutely is. I think, look, I think the concept of friendshoring or onshoring, I think that's certainly going to be a thematic and a strategy for years to come now. Everyone's going to want copper. Everyone's going to want to secure copper. For us, I think Canada and North America, that provides that advantage. We're seeing it. The tailwind that we have in Canada, even from a permitting perspective or from a fundraising perspective and interest perspective, is huge. If this was just, again, I use gold not to beat up on gold, but if this was another type of mining operation, I don't think we'd have the same tailwind that we're seeing now. The truth is, this is the largest critical minerals project in the country, and we're I need to do some checking, but perhaps the largest, if not one of the largest, in North America. So that's why I say globally significant, and I think that backdrop, that tailwind that we have in terms of government support, both in the territory of the Yukon federally, our affected First Nations understanding why we need this copper, why the territory, the country, the world needs this copper. I think that all provides an advantage.
Well, I really like your tailwind analogy. I certainly enjoy that. Finally, Sandeep, what really makes Western Copper and Gold a compelling investment for those that are listening, potential investors, maybe on the fence, in addition to all that you've mentioned? Any final thoughts?
Look, I think it's a pretty simple story. I mean, the scarcity value, I think, is one thing I'd reemphasize. There just aren't a lot of real good copper projects out there that are in the hands of smaller companies that aren't already in the portfolios of these big majors, especially those that can come on, in the time frame that we're talking about, that are simple. We've got one open pit, very low strip, clean metallurgy in a stable jurisdiction, with good economics and excellent economics and leverage to rising commodity prices. I liken this. I became a large investor when I came in a few months ago to run the company, and I liken this to a long dated, already in the money call option. Long dated because we're well funded for several years, in the money because it works on long term prices, and the leverage to rising prices is significant. So I think all that taken together bodes well for existing shareholders and anyone new looking at us at this moment in time.
Well, certainly from everything we're hearing, a standout in the industry. Sandeep Singh, CEO of Western Copper and Gold Corporation, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your really interesting story here with us on Stocks to Watch. And we look forward to sharing more updates from your company.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Appreciate it.